My name is Martha. I'm 36 years old, a single mom living in a small town in rural Oklahoma. What I'm about to share might sound hard to believe, but 3 years ago I died. And what happened after that changed everything I thought I knew about being alone. I died, and Jesus showed me 7 truths about women who walk alone. Before I continue, if you enjoy powerful Christian testimonies like this, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the next story. And to help us feel connected, even though we may be watching from different parts of the world, take a moment to comment below and tell me where you are watching from. Now let me tell you what happened that night. If you are a woman who goes through constant struggles, who ends up alone even though you didn't choose it, or who carries a heavy spiritual burden that others don't seem to notice, keep watching. What Jesus showed me in those moments explains a lot. It happened on October 20th, 2022. I was driving home after a late shift at work. It was already past 10 at night. The road was dark, curvy, and wet because it had been raining all day. After that, my memory gets blurry. A deer suddenly ran out in front of my car. I swerved to avoid it. The car went off the road and crashed into a ditch. I felt the crash, and then everything went black. Later, the doctors told me my heart stopped for almost 4 minutes. They said that by the time the ambulance arrived, I was already gone. They had to work on me for a while before anything changed. And even after my heart started beating again, I stayed in a coma for 2 days. But here's the strange part. Those 4 minutes didn't feel like minutes to me. They felt like hours, because I wasn't in that car anymore. I wasn't on that road. I was somewhere completely different. And I wasn't alone. It's hard to explain how it happened. One moment everything was dark. The next moment it wasn't. It wasn't like waking up from sleep. It felt more like something shifted. Like a door opened and somehow I stepped through it without even realizing I was moving. And then I saw him. Jesus. But he didn't look the way people paint him in pictures. And he didn't look like the version you see in movies. He just looked at me. And somehow I knew exactly who he was. There was no doubt, no confusion. I just knew. He didn't say hello. He didn't greet me the way people greet each other. He simply looked at me and said something I will never forget. He said, "Martha, I need to show you something." Then he started talking to me about women who walk alone. At first, I didn't really understand what he meant. Because honestly, I already walked alone. I had been living that way for years. My marriage ended when my daughter was only 2 years old. The friends I used to have slowly disappeared. My family was scattered in different places. Most nights, after my daughter went to bed, I was by myself. And for a long time I thought something must be wrong with me. But Jesus looked at me and said, "Nothing is wrong with you. Everything is working exactly the way I designed it." Then he said, "Let me show you why." The first thing he showed me was about betrayal. And that hit me immediately because I knew that feeling very well. I felt it deep inside. Jesus said, "Every woman who walks alone today once had people around her. She had friends. She had a circle. She had people she trusted." Then he said, "And then they left." He wasn't saying it casually either. His voice was serious, like he really wanted me to understand this part. He said, "The leaving wasn't random. The betrayal wasn't just pain for no reason. I allowed it because those people were never meant to stay." I asked him, "But why did it have to hurt so much?" And he answered, "Because if it didn't hurt, you wouldn't have let go. You would have kept holding on to something that was slowly destroying you inside. The pain was the only thing strong enough to break that grip." He told me that when a woman is truly betrayed by people close to her, something changes deep inside her. Something that can't happen any other way. All the fake parts start to burn away. The need to please everyone. The need to always be liked. The habit of trusting people without really knowing them. All of it disappears. He said, "I didn't cause the betrayal, but I used it. I used it to purify her. To show her what was real and what was never real at all." Jesus told me that many women cry for years, wondering what they did wrong. Wondering why the people they loved turned against them. But he said they didn't do anything wrong. The problem was never them. The real problem was that they were growing, and the people around them couldn't handle that growth. He explained it like this. When people leave, it feels like rejection. But from where I stand, it's actually redirection. I'm not taking something good away from her. I'm removing something that was blocking what I truly have for her. Then he quoted a verse to me. John chapter 15 verse 2. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit he removes, and every branch that does bear fruit he prunes so it will produce even more fruit. Then he said, that's what I do. I prune, not to destroy, but to multiply. So now she walks alone. Not because she's bitter, but because she's better. She finally sees clearly. She finally trusts wisely. And she doesn't need a crowd anymore. She just needs me. Then Jesus shifted the conversation. His tone became even more serious. He said, the second thing you need to understand is why some women lose people in their lives. It's not always because of betrayal. Sometimes it's because they can't be manipulated anymore. I asked him, what do you mean? He said, some women walk alone because the moment they stopped being controllable, people walked away. Not because she pushed them out, but because she stopped playing along. He explained that there are women who used to go along with everything. They laughed at gossip they didn't even agree with. They stayed silent when they saw something wrong. They bent themselves just to fit into places that never truly fit them. And for a while people liked them for that. Because they were easy. They were manageable. But then something inside them changed. Maybe it was God working in their life. Maybe it was pain teaching them. But at some point they stopped bending. Jesus said, and the moment she stopped bending, the manipulators stopped coming around. He said it very simply. No drama, just the truth. A woman who can't be fooled becomes a threat to people who build their lives on fooling others. He told me that manipulation is one of the devil's favorite tools. And not just in the world. It shows up in churches, in friend groups, even in families. He said manipulation works in a simple way. People keep others around them that they can influence. They keep people close who will agree with everything they say. But the moment someone starts asking questions, starts thinking for themselves, starts saying no, that person suddenly becomes a problem. So they leave, or they turn against her, or they start whispering about her behind her back. Jesus said, they will say she has changed. They will say she's too much. They will say she thinks she's better than everyone. But the truth is, she simply woke up. Then he spoke about spiritual discernment. He said when a woman starts testing spirits instead of blindly trusting words, when she begins to look at people's character instead of just their charm, she becomes someone the enemy can't easily reach. Then he said something I will never forget. Hell doesn't fear loud women, Martha. Hell fears discerning women. He referenced 1 John chapter 4 verse 1. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. He said, that verse is a weapon. And when a woman truly uses it, darkness cannot operate around her. That's why she sometimes ends up alone. Not because she's cold, but because she refused to be spiritually seduced. The next thing he showed me made me cry. Or at least the closest thing to crying you can do in a place like that. Because this part was exactly my story. Jesus said, some women are alone because I placed them there. I looked at him and asked, you did that on purpose? He said, yes. He continued, when I place something heavy on a woman's life, I don't allow her to stay comfortable where she is. I don't let her blend in with everyone else. I separate her, not to punish her, but to protect what I placed inside her. Then he talked about Moses. He said, Moses spent years alone in the desert. Not because nobody wanted him, but because I needed him away from the noise so I could shape him. Then he mentioned Mary. He said, Mary was alone too. She was pregnant and alone. People mocked her. Many misunderstood her. But she was carrying the Savior. I didn't put her in that position to be cruel. I placed her there because what she carried was too important to be surrounded by the wrong environment. Then he said the same thing happens to women today. He told me that when God is preparing a woman for something big, something that will change her life and maybe even the lives of others, he often hides her. He pulls her away from the drama, away from the noise, away from people who would talk her out of her purpose or weaken her faith. Jesus said, intimacy with me requires distance from what is unclean. If she is constantly surrounded by people pulling her attention away from me, she will never hear what I'm trying to tell her. Then he quoted Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will hold you with my righteous right hand. Then he said something that brought me comfort. I am not abandoning her when I separate her. I am actually holding her closer than she has ever been held. He told me the devil tries very hard to make women feel ashamed for being alone. The devil wants them to believe something is wrong with them, that they are broken, that they are unlovable. But Jesus said, every time she chooses me over the crowd, she is aligning herself with something eternal. And the devil hates that. Because I'm building something inside her that the crowd could never build. Then Jesus said, now let's talk about silence. He explained that most people are afraid of silence. They fill every moment with noise. Music, phones, conversations, constant distraction. People struggle to sit still and be quiet. Because if they become quiet, they might finally hear God's voice. And that scares many people. He told me that women who walk alone often live in silence. But that silence is not emptiness. It's actually a gift. He said when a woman stops filling her life with endless noise, something opens inside her. Her ears begin to work the way they were designed to work. She starts hearing things she never noticed before. Not because God just started speaking, but because he had been speaking all along. She simply couldn't hear him over the noise. He said the women who walk alone. The quiet women? The women whose phones aren't constantly ringing. They hear him the most clearly. That surprised me. So I asked him, so being alone is actually an advantage? He smiled and said, when it comes to hearing me? Yes, absolutely. Then he explained something powerful. When you have 10 different people in your life giving you advice, pulling you in different directions, and talking all the time, it becomes almost impossible to hear the one voice that truly matters. But when it's just you and God, that's when the real conversation begins. Jesus said, I don't compete for attention. I don't shout over the crowd. I whisper. And you can only hear a whisper when everything around you is quiet. Then he mentioned a verse from Psalm chapter 46 verse 10. Be still, and know that I am God. He said, that's not just a nice verse, Martha. It's an instruction. Be still. Stop moving. Stop talking. Stop filling every empty moment. And know me. He told me that the silence in a woman's life, the silence that other people see and feel sorry about, is actually sacred. It's holy ground. It's the place where God does some of his deepest work. It's where he trains her. It's where he builds her faith. It's where he shows her things that other people will never see. Jesus said the devil would rather keep her busy and distracted than quiet and connected to God. Because when she is truly connected to him, she becomes dangerous to everything the enemy is trying to do. Then Jesus said, let's talk about what people say about her. He said it calmly, like he already knew how much those words hurt. He said, they call her cold. They say she's too serious. They say she's distant. They say she thinks she's better than everyone. And none of it is true. He said, they don't understand her, so they put labels on her. They can't control her, so they criticize her. They can't handle her silence, so they call it pride. I asked him, so what is it really? He said, it's not pride. It's peace. She finally stopped worrying about what everyone else thinks. And that looks like pride to people who have never reached that kind of peace. Jesus told me that the woman who walks alone has been judged her whole life. People said she was too quiet, too strong, too intense, too spiritual, but every one of those labels was wrong. He said people didn't see the betrayal that made her careful. They didn't see the nights she cried, asking God why she always felt like an outsider. They didn't see how many times she stayed quiet just to keep the peace. How many times she made herself smaller so other people could feel bigger. He said, and when she finally stopped doing that, when she finally said, enough, they called her the problem. But then Jesus said something that really hit me. He said, she's still standing. He said their opinions didn't stop her. Their silence didn't cancel what God placed on her life. Their gossip didn't slow her down. Because when God builds someone, he doesn't build them to fall apart just because someone said something hurtful. Then he mentioned Romans chapter 8 verse 28. And we know that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. He said every lie people told about her, every label they gave her, God will use it, not to destroy her, but to refine her, to teach her that she never needed their approval in the first place. Jesus told me something very real. He said people praise you when you're useful to them, when you're soft, easygoing, and willing to do whatever they want. But the moment you start living for God instead of living for them, they call you difficult. Jesus said this woman stopped being a people pleaser. She became a God follower. And that was the best thing that ever happened to her. Then Jesus said, this next part is important. I want you to really listen. He said there comes a time in a woman's life when she gets tired. Not just physically tired, but spiritually tired. Tired of pouring into people who never pour back into her. Tired of fake conversations. Tired of being around people who drain her instead of lifting her up. He said when she reaches that point, something changes. She stops chasing friendships. She starts chasing something else. I asked him, what does she start chasing? He said, fruit. He was talking about the fruit of the Spirit from Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 to 23. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. He said that's what she wants now. Not likes, not followers, not group chats full of people who don't really understand her. She wants real growth. She wants to produce something that truly matters. Jesus told me that some friendships are actually distractions. They keep you busy, but they don't help you grow. They take your time. They drain your energy. They steal your peace. And at the end of the day, all you're left with is noise. He said this woman decided she didn't want that anymore. She said no to shallow connections. She said no to gossip. She said no to relationships that look good on the outside but are empty inside. He said her phone might be quiet. Her calendar might look empty to other people. But her spirit is alive. Because now she is investing her time in the right place. Jesus said, I don't bless the person you pretend to be around other people. I bless who you really are when it's just you and me. And she finally understood that. He told me that when a woman starts producing real spiritual fruit, her whole life changes. She no longer needs attention. She seeks anointing. She doesn't need drama. She protects her peace. She doesn't make space for everyone anymore. She only makes space for what lines up with what God is doing in her life. Then he said something powerful. That's not selfish, Martha. That's wisdom. That's holy. Jesus paused for a moment. Then he said, now I want to tell you the real reason the enemy goes after these women. I asked, the enemy? He said, yes. The devil. Satan. The one who whispers to her that she's not enough. The one who makes her feel invisible and unloved. He said the enemy doesn't attack her because he doesn't care. He attacks her because he's afraid of her. Jesus said a woman who walks alone and still worships God, still prays, still believes, still obeys, even when no one is cheering for her. That kind of woman scares hell. He said it scares hell because she doesn't need a crowd to keep her faith alive. She doesn't need applause to stay loyal to God. She doesn't need comfort to remain consistent. Her strength doesn't come from popularity. Her strength comes from power. He told me the devil would rather keep these women busy and distracted. He would rather have them scrolling on their phones all day than praying. He would rather see them laughing with people who don't truly care about them than standing alone in truth. But these women refused. Jesus said they refused. And that choice, refusing to give in, is one of the most powerful things a woman can do. Then he mentioned Philippians chapter 4 verse 13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He said when a woman reaches the point where rejection doesn't shake her, where hard times don't break her, where the enemy can't scare her away, she becomes unstoppable, and the enemy knows it. He said that's why the devil works so hard to make her feel unworthy. Because if she ever fully realizes how powerful she really is, if she ever stops doubting herself, and starts walking boldly in the purpose God gave her, it's over for him. Then Jesus looked at me and said something I will never forget. She doesn't need to post about it. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. When she walks into a room, things change. Not because of her, but because of what is on her. And what is on her, is me. Then Jesus said one more thing before everything started to change. He said, Martha, I need you to hear this before you go back. I asked, go back? He said, you're not finished yet. You still have more to do. But before you go back, you need to understand something about yourself. He said, you are one of them. You are one of these women. The ones who walk alone. The ones the world looks at and feels sorry for. But I don't feel sorry for you. I'm proud of you. He said, you didn't break when people left. You didn't lose yourself trying to stay connected to people who never truly saw you. You didn't settle for shallow relationships just to escape loneliness. You chose me, and in that quiet place, I made you dangerous. Then he said words that I carry with me every day. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are not cursed. You are called. And one day people will see it. But even if they don't, that doesn't change what I see. Then everything slowly started fading. It wasn't scary. It felt more like I was being gently pulled back to somewhere I needed to be. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. My daughter was sitting beside me, holding my hand. She was crying. A nurse was checking a monitor nearby. Someone in the room said something about how long I had been unconscious. For a while, I didn't say anything. I just looked at my daughter. And I thought about everything Jesus had told me. I'm not the same person I was before that night. I can't be, because I heard things there that I can never forget. I saw things that changed the way I see my life. For years I walked alone thinking something was wrong with me. But Jesus showed me that nothing was wrong. Everything was unfolding exactly the way it was meant to. I still don't have a big group of friends. My social calendar isn't full. Most days, my phone is quiet. But I hear him, clearly, and that is enough. More than enough. If this testimony spoke to your heart, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you've ever felt like you were walking alone but still sensed God guiding you, I would love to hear your story in the comments below.